The pristine halls of the Global Xenological Research Institute gleamed under bright fluorescent lights as Dr. Aria Novak hurried toward the main laboratory, her heart racing with anticipation. Today marked a milestone in human history. The first official scientific exchange with the Sylphians, an advanced species whose recent arrival on Earth had captured humanity's imagination. Aria paused before the lab's entrance, checking her reflection in the polished steel wall. Her dark curls were neatly contained in a practical bun, her olive skin slightly flushed from rushing. She straightened her crisp white lab coat, took a deep breath, and pressed her palm to the biometric scanner. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a sight that made her breath catch. Standing at the central workstation was the most striking being Aria had ever seen. The Sylphian scientist stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Delicate patterns swirled across their exposed arms, shifting like living tattoos. But it was their eyes that held Aria transfixed, large, almond-shaped, and filled with swirling golden galaxies. Dr. Novak. The Sylphian's voice was melodic, with harmonics that seemed to resonate in Aria's chest. I am Vayarek Thal, xenobiologist of the Sylphian Science Academy. Your research on comparative cellular structures is fascinating. Aria stepped forward, extending her hand before remembering that Sylphians might not share the custom. But Vayara surprised her, reaching out with long, elegant fingers to complete the handshake. The touch sent a subtle tingling sensation up Aria's arm. Please, call me Aria, she managed, trying to maintain her professional composure despite her wonder. Your work on biomolecular adaptation is equally impressive. I have so many questions about Sylphian physiology. A smile played across Vayara's features, their bioluminescent patterns brightening slightly. As do I about humans. Your species is remarkably resilient, despite your seemingly fragile structure. The way your bodies adapt to environmental stresses is unlike anything in our database. They fell into an easy rhythm, moving between workstations as they shared their research. Aria found herself mesmerized by Vayara's fluid grace, the way they manipulated complex holographic displays with unconscious elegance. The Sylphian, in turn, seemed fascinated by the simple mechanics of human movement. Your muscular system is extraordinarily efficient, Vayara observed, watching Aria lift a heavy equipment case. May I? They held out their hand, and Aria nodded, curious. Vayara's fingers ghosted over her forearm, sensors in their fingertips gathering data. Remarkable density and control for a carbon-based life form. Aria felt her skin warm under the touch, her pulse quickening. We're full of surprises, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Would you be interested in participating in a comparative physiology study? The data could benefit both our species. Vayara's eyes sparkled with interest. I would be honored, though I must warn you, my curiosity can be intense. There is so much about humans I wish to understand. As they began setting up the preliminary scans, Aria found herself stealing glances at her new research partner. Vayara moved with an otherworldly grace that made even simple actions appear choreographed. When their eyes met, Aria felt as though she were gazing into the depths of space itself. The day passed in a blur of shared discoveries and growing rapport. They found unexpected commonalities in their approaches to research, finishing each other's hypotheses and building on each other's ideas. When Vayara suggested a novel approach to analyzing cellular regeneration, Aria felt her scientific excitement blend with something deeper, more personal. As the lab's automatic systems began their evening shutdown sequence, Aria realized they had worked straight through lunch and dinner. I should probably show you to your quarters, she said reluctantly, not wanting their time together to end. Actually, Vayara's patterns shifted in what Aria was beginning to recognize as hesitation. I was hoping you might join me in your facility's nutrition center first. I am curious about human dining customs. And they paused, their skin shimming slightly. I find our interactions most enlightening. Aria smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. I'd like that very much. Though I should warn you, our cafeteria food might not be the best introduction to Earth cuisine. Veyara's laughter was like chimes in a gentle breeze. On my world, we have a saying, knowledge shared is sweetness doubled. I suspect even your cafeteria food will taste better with good company. As they left the lab together, Aria felt as though she stood on the threshold of something extraordinary. This was more than a scientific exchange. It was the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about life, love, and the infinite possibilities that existed among the stars. In the soft evening light, their shadows merged on the polished floor, human and Sylphian, two beings from vastly different worlds, drawn together by curiosity, science, and perhaps something more profound than either could yet admit. The dawn light filtering through the Institute's photochromic windows cast prismatic patterns across the meditation garden, where Aria found Veyara performing their morning rituals. The Sylphians' movements were hypnotic, a flowing dance that seemed to defy gravity. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed in rhythm with motions that made Aria think of waves beneath starlight. "Good morning," Aria called softly, not wanting to disturb the beautiful display. "I brought you something." Veyara's eyes opened, golden swirls brightening at the sight of her. "Aria, your timing is impeccable. I was just completing my energy alignment." They gracefully rose from their position, towering over her. "What is this offering?" Aria held out a steaming cup. "Coffee. It's a traditional human stimulant beverage. I thought you might want to try it, since you mentioned being interested in human dietary customs." Veyara accepted the cup with evident curiosity, their long fingers brushing against Aria's. The now familiar tingle of contact made both of them pause for a moment. The Sylphian raised the cup to their face, sensory tendrils around their neck fluttering at the aroma. "Fascinating," they murmured, taking a careful sip. Their eyes widened, patterns shifting to brilliant turquoise. "The chemical composition is intense. I can feel it interacting with my cellular structure." "Is that a good thing?" Aria asked, suddenly worried about potential incompatibilities. "Very good," Veyara assured her, taking another sip. "It resonates with our neural pathways in an unexpectedly pleasant way, though I suspect the effect is quite different from what humans experience." They walked together to the lab, discussing the chemical properties of caffeine and its varying effects on different species. Aria found herself watching the way Veyara's patterns shifted with their emotional states, something she was beginning to read with increasing accuracy. The lab was already buzzing with activity when they arrived. Their comparative physiology study had drawn significant attention from both human and Sylphian scientific communities. Today's agenda included detailed scanning of muscular and nervous system responses to various stimuli. "I've been thinking about your regenerative abilities," Aria said as they prepared the equipment. "The way your cells communicate and repair themselves could revolutionize human medicine." Veyara's expression softened. "Just as your species' adaptability could help us understand new ways of surviving hostile environments. Your bodies may seem fragile compared to ours, but they possess remarkable resilience." The morning's tests required close physical proximity. Aria found herself hyper-aware of every moment their bodies came near each other. As she attached sensor pads to Veyara's shimmering skin, she noticed their patterns responding to her touch, creating swirling eddies of color. "Your heart rate increases when we make contact," Veyara observed, their voice carrying an undertone she hadn't heard before. "As does your skin temperature. Are you uncomfortable?" "No," Aria replied honestly, meeting their golden gaze. "It's something else entirely." The air between them seemed to charge with unspoken possibilities. Veyara reached out, their fingers gently tracing the line of Aria's jaw. "On my world, this response would indicate deep emotional resonance. Is it similar for humans?" Before Aria could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights began flashing, and the lab's security protocols activated automatically. Through the windows, they could see security personnel rushing past. Warning: unauthorized breach in Sector 7. The facility's AI announced. All personnel implement lockdown procedures. Area's training kicked in. She quickly began securing their sensitive research data, while Vayara moved to protect their biological samples. They worked in seamless coordination, months of partnership evident in their efficient movements. Sector 7, Vayara said, their patterns now pulsing with concern. That's where we keep the hybrid cellular cultures. Area nodded grimly. Someone's trying to steal our research, but why? And how did they get past our security? The lights flickered, and the lab's power fluctuated. In the momentary darkness, Vayara's bioluminescence cast an ethereal glow over them both. Their hands found each other instinctively, fingers intertwining. Whatever happens, Vayara said softly, their harmonics resonating with intensity, we face it together. Our work is too important to lose. Area squeezed their hand, feeling the subtle energy that always passed between them grow stronger. Together, she agreed, realizing that she meant far more than just protecting their research. As security alerts continued to sound around them, they stood united, human and Sylphian, their bodies humming with shared purpose and unspoken feelings. The barrier between their species seemed to fade with each passing moment, replaced by something deeper, more profound, and increasingly impossible to deny. Through the chaos, Area found herself thinking that some forces in the universe were stronger than any physical or cultural differences. As they prepared to defend their work, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, her connection with Vayara had become something rare and precious, a bridge between worlds that neither of them had expected to find. Through the dimly lit corridors of Sector 7, Area and Vayara moved with practiced stealth. The emergency lighting cast eerie shadows, broken only by the gentle pulse of Vayara's bioluminescent patterns, now dimmed to a subtle glow. Security teams had advised all personnel to stay in place, but they couldn't risk losing months of irreplaceable research. I'm detecting multiple intruders, Vayara whispered, their sensory tendrils quivering. Their biochemical signatures are strange. Masked somehow. Area nodded, pressing herself against the wall as footsteps echoed from an adjacent hallway. They came prepared. This isn't some random break-in. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by harsh whispers. Find the hybrid samples. Destroy everything else. These abominations need to be eliminated before they contaminate humanity. Area's blood ran cold. Pure Earth Movement, a radical anti-alien group that had been gaining momentum lately. She felt Vayara tense beside her, their patterns flickering with concern. We cannot let them destroy our work, Vayara said softly. These advances could save countless lives, human and Sylphian alike. A crash echoed from their research lab, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Area's heart raced as she thought of their carefully cultivated cell cultures, the breakthrough discoveries they were on the verge of making. Without thinking, she started forward, but Vayara's hand caught her arm. Wait, they urged, pulling her close. I have an idea. In the confined space of the corridor, their bodies pressed together. Area could feel the subtle vibration of Vayara's energy field. Their eyes met in the darkness, golden swirls dancing with determination. My species can generate a localized electromagnetic pulse, Vayara explained quickly. It would disable their equipment, possibly even their masks. But they hesitated, patterns shifting to deep blue. It requires significant energy. I would be vulnerable afterward. Area understood the trust Vayara was placing in her. Sylphians rarely revealed their defensive capabilities, let alone made themselves vulnerable to other species. Do it, she whispered. I'll protect you. Vayara's patterns began to brighten, building to an intense glow. Their skin grew warm against Area's, and she could feel a static charge building in the air. The intruders must have noticed something too, because suddenly there were shouts of alarm. What the hell is that? Some kind of alien tech. Vayara's release of energy was beautiful and terrifying. A wave of invisible force rippled through the corridor, accompanied by a high-pitched tone that made Aria's teeth vibrate. Every electronic device in range went dark, including the emergency lights. In the total darkness that followed, Aria heard bodies hitting the floor as the intruder's equipment failed. Vayara sagged against her, their usual luminescence dimmed to almost nothing. She wrapped her arms around them, supporting their weight. "Hold on," she whispered, her lips close to where she thought Vayara's ear might be. "I've got you." Security arrived moments later, their backup systems quickly coming online. The intruders were apprehended, 6 men and women in high-tech stealth suits, now completely disabled. But Aria barely noticed, her attention focused on Vayara, who remained worryingly quiet in her arms. "Medical team to Sector 7, she called out, gently lowering Vayara to the floor. Their skin had taken on a pale, almost translucent quality, their patterns barely visible. "Aria." Vayara's voice was faint, their harmonics discordant. "The samples. Are they?" "They're safe," she assured them, running her hands over their face, their shoulders, checking for any signs of injury. "You saved them. You saved everything." A weak smile crossed Vayara's features. "Worth it," they murmured. "Though I must admit, I had hoped to reveal my feelings for you under more romantic circumstances." Aria's heart skipped a beat. "Your feelings. Among my people," Vayara continued, their voice growing stronger. "Sharing energy is intimate. Like a kiss, but deeper, when we touched, during the pulse. You must have felt it too." Aria remembered the surge of connection she'd experienced, the way their energies had seemed to merge for a brief, incredible moment. "I felt it," she whispered. "I feel it still." Medical teams were approaching, but for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Aria leaned down, pressing her forehead to Vayara's in a gesture that somehow felt right. Their patterns brightened slightly, reaching out to dance across her skin. "Rest now," she said softly. "We'll talk more when you're stronger. About everything." As the medics arrived with their specialized equipment, Aria stepped back but kept hold of Vayara's hand. She watched their patterns pulse in time with her own heartbeat, knowing that whatever came next, their relationship had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. In the aftermath of chaos, surrounded by the wreckage of hatred and fear, love had bloomed, defying physical differences, transcending species barriers, and promising something entirely new in the vast expanse of space and time. The medical bay of the Institute hummed with quiet energy as Aria pored over test results, her eyes burning from hours of staring at holographic displays. It had been 3 days since the attack, and while Vayara's condition had stabilized, something wasn't right. "Your cellular regeneration rates are dropping," she murmured, more to herself than to her patient. The readings showed Vayara's usually vibrant biopatterns growing increasingly erratic. A side effect of the energy discharge, perhaps. Vayara suggested from their recovery pod, their voice weaker than usual. Their once brilliant skin had taken on a concerning grayish tinge, their patterns moving sluggishly. Aria shook her head, frustration evident in her movements. "This is something else. The EMP shouldn't have caused this kind of cellular degradation. It's almost like..." She paused, a terrible thought forming. "Like you're being attacked from the inside." She quickly pulled up security footage from the break-in, focusing on the moments before Vayara's electromagnetic pulse. There, a barely visible mist released by one of the intruders. At the time, they'd assumed it was just their stealth technology. They planned for this, Aria realized, her voice tight with anger. They knew a Sylphian might try to stop them. That mist must have contained some kind of tailored pathogen. Vayara's patterns flickered with concern. Biological warfare. Primitive but effective. They attempted to sit up but fell back, their energy visibly depleted. "My immune system should have neutralized any Earth-based threat. Unless they had help," Aria said grimly. "Someone with access to Sylphian biological data." The implications were frightening. A conspiracy that reached beyond Earth, aimed at preventing human-Selfian cooperation. Working frantically, Area began analyzing blood samples, looking for anything unusual. The Institute's advanced equipment hummed as it processed data, searching for anomalies in Vayara's cellular structure. "Tell me about your world," she requested softly as she worked, trying to keep Vayara engaged. "About your forests of crystal, the seas of living light you mentioned." Vayara's patterns brightened slightly at the memories. The crystal forests sing during sunrise. They began, their harmonics growing stronger. Each branch resonates with different frequencies, creating music that echoes through the valleys. As they spoke, Area noticed something in their blood work, microscopic crystalline structures that shouldn't be there, breaking down Vayara's cells from within. But the pattern seemed familiar. "The crystal forests," she breathed. "Vayara, the pathogen. It's mimicking your world's natural crystal formations, but as a weapon. Your body doesn't recognize it as a threat because it reads as something familiar." Hope flickered in Vayara's golden eyes. "Can you neutralize it?" "Better," Area said, already moving to the synthesis lab. "I can turn it against itself." Human blood contains elements that would destabilize the crystalline structure. If I can isolate the right compounds. She worked through the night, combining her knowledge of human biology with everything she'd learned about Sylphian physiology. Their months of research together had prepared her for this moment, though she'd never imagined using it to save Vayara's life. As dawn approached, Area prepared the treatment. The solution glowed faintly blue in its container, human and Sylphian elements combined in perfect balance. "This might be uncomfortable," she warned, connecting the container to Vayara's medical pod. "Your body will have to fight through the breakdown process." Vayara reached out, taking her hand. Their touch was weak but determined. "I trust you, Area, more than any being I've ever known." As the treatment began flowing into Vayara's system, their patterns flared with sudden intensity. Their back arched, and a sound like crystalline chimes filled the room. Area held their hand tightly, her own body trembling with shared pain and hope. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing her forehead to theirs. "Fight it, please." Hours passed in tense vigilance. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Vayara's natural colors began to return. Their patterns, erratic and dim for so long, started to stabilize. The monitors showed the crystalline structures breaking down, harmlessly absorbed by their recovering immune system. When Vayara finally opened their eyes, their gaze was clear and bright. "You did it," they said softly, reaching up to touch Area's tear-stained cheek. "You saved me." "We did it together," Area corrected, her voice thick with emotion. "Everything we've learned about each other, every difference we've bridged, it all led to this moment." Vayara's patterns swirled with deep blue and gold, a combination Area had never seen before. "Among my people," they said, "there is a term for when two beings' life energies become permanently intertwined. It is rare, even between Sylphians. Between different species, it was thought impossible." "Until now?" Area asked, her heart racing. "Until now," Vayara confirmed, their patterns reaching out to dance across her skin. "You are part of me now, Area Novak. In saving my life, you have bound us together in ways that transcend physical form." As the morning light filtered through the medical bay windows, Area and Vayara held each other, their bodies humming with shared energy and newfound understanding. They had overcome not just a weapon designed to tear them apart, but the very boundaries of their species. In that quiet moment of healing and connection, both knew that their relationship had become something unprecedented, a bridge between worlds, a defiance of limitations, and a promise of possibilities yet unexplored. The setting sun painted the Institute's observation dome in shades of gold and crimson, a fitting backdrop for what might be the most important presentation in human history. Area stood before the assembled delegation of Earth's scientific leadership and Sylphian High Council members, her heart steady despite the magnitude of the moment. What began as a study of comparative biology she began, her voice clear and confident, has evolved into something far more significant. The attack on our facility, while tragic, led to unprecedented breakthroughs in cross-species medical treatment. Vayara stood beside her, their restored brilliance drawing admiring murmurs from both humans and Sylphians. Their patterns shifted in gentle waves, perfectly synchronized with Aria's breathing, a visible sign of their unique bond that had not gone unnoticed. A hybridized treatment that saved Ambassador Cathal's life, Aria continued, represents more than just medical advancement. It proves that our species can do more than simply coexist. We can truly integrate, supporting and strengthening each other in ways we never imagined possible. The holographic displays behind them showed detailed cellular scans, demonstrating how human and Sylphian biological elements had combined to create something entirely new. But it was the subtle dance of energy between the two presenters that truly captured their audience's attention. The Pure Earth movement sought to prevent exactly this kind of breakthrough. Vayara added, their harmonics resonating through the chamber. They feared what they did not understand, that our differences are not barriers to be feared, but opportunities to be embraced. A Sylphian elder rose, their ancient patterns rippling with curiosity. This connection between you, it defies our oldest laws of biological compatibility. How can you be certain it is stable, safe? Aria and Vayara exchanged a glance, their energy fields briefly merging in a display that made several instruments in the room flicker. We are certain, they answered in unison, their voices blending in perfect harmony. Because we've mapped it, Aria explained, bringing up new displays. The quantum entanglement of our cellular structures, the synchronization of our energy patterns, it's all documented in our latest research. What we've discovered could revolutionize everything from medicine to space travel. The human scientific director leaned forward, her eyes sharp with interest. And you believe this could be replicated, that others could achieve similar bonds? With proper preparation and understanding, yes, Vayara confirmed. Though perhaps not always in the same way. Each connection would be unique to the individuals involved. The presentation continued, but the outcome was already clear in the excited whispers and thoughtful nods from both delegations. What had begun as a simple research partnership had evolved into proof that humans and Sylphians could achieve levels of cooperation beyond anyone's expectations. Later, as the delegates filed out to begin their deliberations, Aria and Vayara stood alone in the observation dome. The first stars were becoming visible through the transparent ceiling, twinkling like promises of adventures yet to come. They'll approve the expansion of the program, Vayara said softly, their patterns glowing with contentment. Others will follow our path. Aria turned to them, taking their hands in hers. And what about our path? Now that the immediate crisis is over, you'll be expected to return to your homeworld. Vayara's pattern swirled with deep emotion. My love, they said, using the human term with careful precision. Do you really think I could return to a single world when the universe has given us such gifts? The Sylphian Council has already approved my request for a permanent Earth posting. Joy surged through their shared connection, making both of them glow. Besides, Vayara continued, tracing the line of Aria's smile. We have so much more to discover. About each other. About what we can become together. The perfect research project, Aria teased, leaning into their touch. A lifetime of study. Many lifetimes, Vayara corrected. Sylphians live for centuries, and our bond has already begun extending your cellular regeneration. We have time, my Aria. Time to explore every possibility. As night fell over the Institute, two figures stood silhouetted against the stars. One human, one Sylphian, their energies intertwined in ways that defied conventional science. They had begun as researchers, become saviors, and emerged as pioneers of a new kind of relationship between species. Their love story would become legend, studied by future generations of humans and Sylphians alike. But in that moment, holding each other beneath the vast expanse of space, They were simply two beings who had found something extraordinary in their differences and something universal in their connection. The stars beckoned with infinite possibilities, promising adventures and discoveries yet unimagined. Together, they would face whatever came next, not just as partners in research, but as proof that love truly could transcend every boundary, even those between the stars themselves.